Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Inside LSU Baseball. Coming to you after one of the more disappointing games that I have watched in a long time. LSU was run ruled by Northwestern State last night, 13-3. And if I heard correctly, it was the first time that LSU was run ruled at home in a midweek game ever. Um, so that's not great. And it's one of these things where if you lost the game and, maybe you're running out some arms like Chandler Dorsey and Cade Woods or Grant Fontenot, or maybe even one guy who's regularly in the mix and they didn't pitch well, and Jones goes 2 for 3 with a walk, and Milam hits the ball hard but at people, and that's one thing. But like, your offense was bad, your defense was bad, your pitching was bad. So everything was bad. And it's just very frustrating because where you are in the season, you are getting ready to embark on the most challenging 3 weeks of the season. And sandwiched in there, by the way, we don't talk about this. After Tennessee, you've got a midweek against Southeastern, who is having one of the best years they've ever had, who's really, their RPI is good. I mean, they're trying to make the tournament. They're at the top of their own conference. So it's just, you're going to have some tough contests coming up. And so I don't know if we were looking past Northwestern State, but just frustrating when you see some of the key arms that you need to rely on out there, walking people, can't hold the line. You went 0 for 5 with runners in scoring position, and that's after the offense was 7 for 37 against Bama, 4 for 27 against Auburn. And in your last 8 games, the Tigers are hitting 181 with runners in scoring position. And that's not great. And it's just not what you're looking for with Tennessee coming to town. So, it's, you hear the whole, oh, it's just baseball and, it's a midweek game. And I get that, but, losing is not the thing. It's kind of some of the trends that you're seeing that can be concerning. I'm not saying that they will be. And one thing that we know is that a team can change in like a blink of an eye. You look at some of that's evidenced by, look at somebody like Texas A&M, who couldn't get anything right. They get run ruled and no hit by Tennessee, and the next day they start, it's like an unbelievable run that they're on. Same with Florida. So a lot of teams, just because you play bad, one night, that doesn't always mean that you're going to be in a funk. But at the same time, I don't love some of the things that I'm seeing over and over. Now, some are throwing a fit about the whole Jared Jones at third base. They're bashing Jay Johnson about that decision, as well as the not playing Jake Brown every day. And this is why you need to listen to Inside LSU Baseball, because we're not emotional. We can be, but for the most part, we research. We're entrenched in college baseball, and we try to look at things, through a baseball lens. Look, like everybody else, it's emotional when LSU's not playing well, but sometimes you have to take a step back and look at the big picture. Let's talk about Jake Brown, because I'm hearing a lot, just going on and on about, how Jay Johnson, it's malpractice, excuse me, that Jake Brown's not in the lineup. And every time he has a good game, it just shows even more and more how wrong of a decision it's been. Jake Brown, and let me start by saying, this is not to put any one player above another player or to put anybody down. I am simply just trying to uh, give the complete picture. It's easy to have recency bias, but Jake Brown was on a 1-for-14 bender entering game 3 of the Auburn series. He went 1-for-3 versus Auburn and then started the next game going 1-for-5 with a single against McNeese. So entering the Bama series, Brown has a stretch where he's hitting 3-for-22. That is a 136 batting average. But we're yelling that he's an obvious choice to be in the everyday lineup. When he goes out there and has a great series versus Bama, sure, it's easy to say, hey, put him in the lineup. And guess what? Jay started him versus Northwestern State after he came through against Bama. He was in the lineup, and he's in the lineup a lot as it is. Do you know what Ethan Fry was hitting that same time frame that I just mentioned that Jake Brown was 136? So from Louisiana Tech to Bama, how about Ethan Fry is 10-for-28? That's a 357 batting average. But let's melt down and throw out I told you so's when, Ethan Fry has a 0-for-2 game and Jake Brown has a good weekend. What about Josh Pearson? I keep hearing, just let Josh Pearson, if he's so clutch, pinch hit. He doesn't deserve in the line to be in the lineup over Jake Brown. That Brown's a much better right fielder than Pearson. What are we talking about? Did a lot of you guys watch the 2023 season? See the catches, the defense that Josh Pearson played? What about last year? Multiple times when Pearson plays a ball off the right field wall and throws the runner out at second. I mean, Josh Pearson is a very, very good outfielder. And look, I'm fine with Jake Brown playing right field and being in the outfield, but let's not act like he's, just an obvious major upgrade over Pearson defensively. Now, offensively, Brown and Pearson have had identical number of plate appearances in 2025. Identical. And if you just look at the numbers, sure, you can point to the fact that Jake Brown is batting 40 points higher than Pearson. Jake Brown's batting 330. Pearson's batting 290. But guess what? It doesn't matter how you get on base, right? It's just how you get on base. Well, Josh Pearson's got a 448 on base percentage to Jake Brown's 408. That's 40 points higher on base percentage. You start looking at like extra base hits, and I mean, they even out. Pearson's got 5 doubles and 6 home runs. So that's 11 extra base hits. Brown's got 6 doubles, 2 triples, and 3 home runs. That's 11. RBIs are Brown's a little bit ahead, 29-24. But you start looking at like when you combine the hit by pitch and bases on ball, so free passes, Josh Pearson's got 29 free passes to Jake Brown's 16. And Pearson's only struck out 14 times to Jake Brown's 15. So, like, again, when you compare these two, it's not like we're talking night and day. And if you go through certain series, their series when Pearson was really good, Jake Brown didn't have a good series. So, again, when you see Brown go 3-for-5 against Bama, it's very easily to stand up and beat your chest and talk about how terrible of a decision it is. But, like, sometimes you got to step back. And look, and if you want to point to the conference production, okay, Brown had a great series against Bama, like I mentioned. But going into the series, Brown was hitting in conference 263. 263. Now, when you have a 3-for-5 series, your numbers are going to skyrocket. But I wouldn't say he's been overwhelmingly better than Pearson's been. So, look, let's talk now about as far as Jay trying Jones at third base, because people are losing their minds at this, saying it's desperate of Jay Johnson. My take is this. I think what Jay Johnson was doing was giving Jared Jones reps in the event, like we saw last weekend, when you're chasing runs and you need to get more offensive, okay? Putting Jared Jones out of the blue at third base, maybe it helps to give him more reps in a midweek game. In my opinion, that's what I thought he was doing. I never once looked at that and thought, hey, we might see Jared Jones start this weekend. So, but yet people get on here and they start saying it's desperation and that's something that you try out in fall ball, not in April. Look, I don't love it either. I don't want Jared Jones to be at third base, but like fall ball is not the same thing as a game environment. If it was, Blaze Priester would be your starting catcher right now, the guy who led the team with like 7 home runs in the fall. But it's not. So I'm going to get off of all of this, but I will say this. I don't know if you're aware, but Tennessee, 40 games into the season, is still shuffling their infield around. I mean, they got an All-American shortstop who's going to be a first-round pick that they've just now settled at third base. They've tried him at third. I think they saw him at first base. I mean, they've got a DH, Dalton Bargo, that's been in the outfield. Now he's playing third. They're still shuffling things around. So, yeah, and I think Tennessee's a pretty good program, and Tony V's a pretty good coach. So, to again look at this and say that this is, malpractice and Jay Johnson being stubborn, I just don't think that's I don't think that's the right take. But anyway, that's just me. Now, let's look at Tennessee. And I really am, this might be a little bit of a different preview because I really think that this weekend is a lot more about us than it is Tennessee. We look every week detailed, about the other team and their players and their pitchers and everything. But if you come out here and you don't score any runs and you don't get any help outside of your stud relievers, it doesn't matter. Mediocre players are going to be able to beat you. So, and I want to say this, what I'm going to do, because teams can change in such a short period of time. One week they sweep, the next week they get swept. Same thing for players. Some start out conference play one way and then, now 6 weekends into the season, they're, a totally different player. For this reason, I'm using data which is going to cover the month of April. So I'm looking back at the last 3 conference series, and I'm going to stick to conference stats because I think that's a great equalizer. So while digging into the numbers on Tennessee, a few areas really stood out to me and tell an important story. All right. Number 1 is the errors. So over the last 3 series, Tennessee has committed 13 errors on defense. And I think it's just like a preconceived, notion that this is such an incredible infield. And you look at Dean Curley and Gavin Keelan and Ariel Antigua and Manny Marin and all these guys. But the reality is that Keelan's been hurt. He's just getting back into second base. Curley has not been great at shortstop. And Antigua has made the spectacular play, but he has not been great. And neither has Manny Marin that you put at shortstop. The freshman, he's a very good freshman. This defense, and you think that LSU, everything's crumbling. Go listen to Tennessee talk radio and I mean, you would think that this is a team that's just dropped, half of their games. I mean, they have dropped 2 of their last home series, but this is still a very dangerous team. But anyway, the defense has not been great. The other thing is the stolen bases allowed. In the last 6 conference games that Liam Doyle has not started. So last 3 conference games, when Liam Doyle starts on Friday, and he doesn't have a great pickoff mood, but he's lefty, teams aren't really running on him. But you take Saturday and Sunday, and teams are running wild. They have stole 33 bases in the last 6 conference games that Doyle did not start. That's an average of 5.5 stolen bases per game. You look in the A&M series, they stole 7 bases, games 2 and 3 combined. Ole Miss series, they stole 10 bases in those 2 games 2 and 3. Kentucky stole 16 bases the last 2 games of the series. So this is a huge opportunity for LSU. We talked a lot about, and Jay has all year, about how athletic, how this team can win different ways. This is time, especially when you get an offense struggling, to see what we got, because Cannon Peebles is experienced as he might be, this is a pitching staff that's not doing a good job holding runners. They're not very quick to home plate. You've got all kind of different combination of infielders covering bags and not getting there on time. So, and look, I'm sure they're aware of this. And really, Marcus Phillips, the Saturday starter, is the main one that you can go crazy on. I think Kentucky stole 8 bases against him this past Saturday. So the errors, the defense, the running game, they're not controlling. Those are 2 real weak areas for Tennessee right now. Now, team batting average over the last month, the month of April in conference games, they're hitting .252, identical to what LSU's batting in those last 3 conference games. They do have 16 home runs, which that solves a lot of problems. When you can hit some home runs, it changes a lot. Now, if we're looking at individual efforts, you really don't have many guys in the month of April that have put together great months. Leadoff man, and they might alter this a little bit, but Dean Curley, he's hitting .273 right now. Last 3 conference games. Dalton Bargo, he's a transfer a couple years ago from Missouri, got a lot of pop from the left side, playing third base now. He's hitting .219. Hunter Ensley, the experienced center fielder, batting .211. Andrew Fisher, the guy who was at Ole Miss, and then, wait a second. He started at Duke, then Ole Miss. This is his 3rd school in 3 years. Big power hitter. He's batting .286, so not doing a terrible job. Reese Chapman, the right fielder. All these guys are good hitters. He's only batting .233. Manny Marin, .261. Cannon Peebles, .286. Like, none of these guys are really doing a great job and listen, in conference, your average is not going to be where it is, like the same what it is overall. That's a given. Now, Gavin Keelan, who's probably going to be back in second base, he's been DHing because of an injury. He's batting .346, and he is almost impossible to get out. We'll talk more about him. But I'm just pointing out that this is a team, when you think of Tennessee, and you might hear some people get on and do previews and talk about how many home runs they hit and that this is an offense that's going to kill you. And I'm just telling you, if you dig into the numbers, they're kind of reeling a little bit right now. Defensively, controlling the running game, even offensively. They've not been playing great ball. But don't get me wrong, this is a potent offense. They have 5 guys with double-digit home runs. 5. LSU only has Jones, who has 13 home runs. You've got guys like Andrew Fisher's got 16 overall home runs, Dalton Bargo 11, Curley 11, Keelan 11, and Keelan has missed like 13 games or something like that. He would have a lot more. Reese Chapman's got 10 home runs. They got 3 guys with 8 home runs. After Jared Jones, I think Dickinson, Milam, those are your second highest home run hitters, and they've got 8. So this team can hit for power. You might say some of that has to do with the park they play in. The wind's blowing out a lot at Lindsey Nelson. But look, this team can also hit no matter where they are. Don't hit quite as many doubles, so that's a good thing if you get some wind blowing in, maybe they're too dependent on the home run. But look, you just cannot have free passes against this offense. And look, I could go through all the players, but they're all scary, all of them. They've got one of the best freshman classes. The transfer portal class was one of the better ones. It wasn't a lot of quantity, but it's a lot of quality. But how you perform on the mound is going to really determine how you do against this team. Now, their starting pitching, it's very similar to LSU in that they have a true Friday night ace who's going to be a first-round draft pick this summer. All right. They have a sneaky good Saturday starter. And then Sunday is a guy who doesn't have a whole lot of job security right now. And that's just where they're at. Now, Liam Doyle on the year, you look at anything, he's, one of the top strikeout guys in the country, definitely in the SEC. I mean, he's got a 7-1 record. He's going to throw game one. He's got a 2.48 ERA. He's got 104 strikeouts and 58 innings. And teams are only batting 154 against him. Now, in SEC play, he's been human. 3.58 ERA. And he has given up some runs, He's had a couple of outings that, where early on teams got to him. But one thing I'll give him, he doesn't give up a lot of hits, throughout the course of the game. But he will stay out there and give his team innings. That is for sure. But very similar to Cade Anderson. Cade Anderson, 6-1 on the year. He doesn't have 104 strikeouts, but he's got 91. The ERA is a little bit higher, 3.92. And we're talking overall, both of them. Doyle's given him 58 innings overall. Anderson's thrown 57 in the third inning. So both teams have a very good left-handed ace. Now, you start looking at day two starter, and Marcus Phillips is a guy who last year really wasn't a big part of their run to the World Series. Had very good stuff, could throw really hard, but just very wild and never really gave them much. And he's developed in a big way. I mean, on the year, he's 2-3 record, but got a 2.77 ERA in 48 innings. He's got 62 strikeouts. Teams are only batting 209 against him. Doesn't, as of late, last three series in SEC play, hasn't given them the length of like an Anthony Ianson. His last outing was his best in the month of April. He went 5 innings against Kentucky, didn't give up an earned run, but his two previous outings, he went 4 2/3 against A&M, gave up 4 earned runs, went 3 1/3 against Ole Miss, gave up 4 earned runs. So, and on the other side, Anthony Ianson's getting better and better and better, his last bunch of outings. I mean, Ianson gave you 6 innings against Alabama, 1 earned run, went 5 innings against Auburn, did give up 4 earned runs, but I thought he pitched better than that. Oklahoma, 5 2/3, 0 earned runs. So both teams have very good Saturday starters. I like our guy better. I like Ianson. So I think we have an advantage game 2, especially because Marcus Phillips has given up 30 stolen bases in the last, I don't know if it's on the year. Is it on? Maybe it's on the year. So that's pretty wild. Now, the game 3 starters, I don't know what LSU's doing. I don't know if they go Shores or go where. Whatever it is, it's very similar to Coons, the freshman who's starting right now for Tennessee. He was rolling for a while, but like his last 3 starts, he went 1 2/3 against Kentucky. Against Ole Miss, he only lasted 2 2/3. A&M, 2 2/3. I don't know if they stick with him, but it's another case where I don't know who they have. That's a lot better. And then I think I've already said this, but as far as I'm concerned, I think it's a toss-up, the advantage there, whether you go Shores or Ware. I think you stick with Ware with Shores, because I don't know what else you have unless you go TBA and you don't use one of your 2 stud relievers games 1 and 2. Now, so pitching stats, kind of very similar. Both teams have big arms or big strikeout stuff. It's just a matter of who executes against very capable offenses. Now, when you talk about the relief pitching, there's really only 2 guys on Tennessee's staff that you will remember from last year. Now, Dylan Loy, he started in the SEC championship game in Hoover, gave them 4 2/3 scoreless. It was a very good matchup when Nate Ackenhausen threw I don't think he gave up a hit in at least 3 innings. So it was a good matchup. 2 lefties, kind of off-speed stuff, crafty lefties. But he's one of their main relievers last year. The other guy who you remember is Nate Snead. He closed out game 2 of a 3-1 win at Tennessee last year. And he went 2 1/3 scoreless innings. Everybody else they have this year that's a main piece of the bullpen, they didn't really do anything last year. Now, Andrew Benke, he pitched in 3 games last year against LSU for an inning or a batter. He's not really involved this year. But this is a bullpen that their top 4 arms are very good. But again, if you dig into the numbers, there's some things that are a little eye-opening. Their big arms are right-hander Nate Snead and Tanner Franklin. So Nate Snead is a Wichita State transfer who was there last year. I mean, he's a guy who throws 100 miles an hour with a lot of sink. They've kind of used him as a long reliever, but he can also close out games. But what's interesting is that Nate Snead, in conference, he's got 8 appearances. He's got a 5.06 ERA, and teams are batting .310 against him. Now, he could come out and handcuff you for 3 innings easily, and you go, who is this guy throwing 100? But I find it interesting that in conference play, he's got an ERA over 5, and teams are batting over 300. Tanner Franklin's a Wichita State transfer. He's gotten up to 102. 102. And he's got a 6.23 ERA. So 6.23 in 9 appearances, giving up more hits than innings. He can strike you out, but teams are batting .333 against him. So, again, if you just watch the first half of the year and looked at some video on these arms, these are high draft caliber guys, but looking at the numbers as of late, they haven't been great, guys. So it's one of those things where they've got big stuff, but if you make them throw strikes and you get in this bullpen, you've got a chance. You've got a real chance. So the other 2 arms that they have are very good. They're lefties. Where the first 2 guys I mentioned are mostly big fastballs. Now, they've got other pitches, but it's a lot of fastballs. Dylan Loy, who I mentioned, he's one of these guys. He doesn't throw maybe low 90s, but if his breaking ball is on, it's very hard to hit him. It's very hard to hit him. So he's one of those guys that you got to jump on his fastball. And when you see a fastball, hit it. Because if you start chasing breaking balls and he starts landing them and pitching backwards, it's very tough to hit him. He's just, especially coming in after some of these starters they have that throw, upper 90s. Now, the other lefty they've got is Arvidsson. He was one of the top JUCO arms that they thought might go pro, and he's got a lot of deception. Again, he's at 5.14 ERA, but don't let that fool you. I mean, he's another big arm. But they've got 4 guys that are all very good, and on any game can come in, and you're like, man, who's this guy? So I say that earlier, it's going to be a lot about what does our offense do? What does our offense do? That is the key. So staying on pitching, we're talking about our pitching. It really comes down to this. I like our bullpen, like our stud guys, better than anybody else in the country. And you might say, well, you only got 2 guys. You only got Zach Cowan and Kason Evans, and that's true. But those 2 guys are better than any other team has, period. Other teams might have 4 good guys. You've got 2 guys that are shut down, game over. Now, I say that. They're going to have times when they're human. I mean, look at Cowan against Alabama. But I mean, Zach Cowan right now in SEC play has a 1.19 ERA. 20, and that's in 22 and 2/3 innings pitched, 4 walks, 27 strikeouts. Teams are batting .17, 171 against him. I mean, I just read you Tennessee's stud relievers. They've got 5 ERAs and teams are batting .300. Case and Evans, .53 ERA, giving up a .210 batting average. So you've got 2 relievers that can flat out get it done. The problem is, who else do you have? And every time I think LSU takes a step forward, you go out and you find, you see something that's a little discouraging. And that's the thing is I just really don't know right now who it is that you turn to. Look, you're going to need a guy like Connor Ware. I mean, you're going to need him. You're going to need a guy with stuff like Jacob Myers, who can come in and blow some of these elite hitters that Tennessee has away with that fastball. But I think the main thing is that Tennessee sees a ton of breaking balls. Everybody they face is scared to groove one. So Tennessee sees a lot of breaking balls. They have very good discipline. I mean, Andrew Fisher is one of the top at drawing walks in the country, and I think he's first in the SEC. So if you're not able to command your fastball and gain their respect, it's going to be a long day, because if you just get out there and, you're one-dimensional, these guys are going to put a hurting on you. If you look at this past weekend, the way that Kentucky was able to have such success is Nick McKay and I think it was Ben Cleaver. Man, they got ahead with the fastball. I don't know if Tennessee was looking breaking ball because they're so used to that. But, those guys with Kentucky with low 90 stuff were just popping the fastball in there, and they were always ahead in the count. And then they can come back with the breaking stuff. You're just going to need that. You're going to need command this weekend. You cannot pitch to these guys, one-dimensional or being behind 2-0 all the time. It's just not going to happen. So now, we spent so much time talking about the pitching staff, but I'm going to tell you right now, if this offense does not get going for LSU, it will not matter. LSU has scored 4 runs or less in 8 of the last 12 games. And one of those times they scored 5. That was against Nichols when they didn't score for like 7 innings and they had a big inning. They're just not scoring runs. Their team batting average, the last 3 conference series, identical to Tennessee, it's .252. 9 home runs. Look at some of the individual performances. Now, they do have, I think Tennessee just had a couple of guys that have had, were hitting .300. Derek Curriell's 12 for 40 in the month of April in conference. He's hitting .300. Danny Dickinson's batting .324. Braswell's batting .389. Look at him. That's great. In the last 3 conference series, Braswell's batting .389. Stanfield, .433. So you've got guys that are doing it. Now, I will tell you this. You are going to go as far as your best players take you. And right now, when you have Jared Jones, 7 for 38 in the month of April, that's 184. Stephen Milam, and I'm talking, I guess that 3 series would be Oklahoma, Auburn, Alabama. I mean, he's 5 for 34. That's a 147 batting average. You need these guys to get going. These are guys that can carry a game. And look, you got to get something going from your catching position. You're not getting anything in like 8 games. I think I sounded off with this stat. I think on the wrap up for the Alabama series, I want to say it was something like 0 for the last 16 with like 14. It was something ridiculous. We're just not getting anything out of it. So you have to have some of your players do a better job. You've got to do better with runners in scoring position, and you're going to have to throw strikes. That's it. I don't have any magical keys for the game because it's going to be a dogfight. And look, I bleed LSU. I'm always going to be optimistic about this team. Um, this is what I'll say about this series. You cannot get swept. You cannot. You might say, what are you talking about, Jason? Swept? You don't have any confidence. You cannot get swept. Because if you play against Tennessee the way you have been playing, getting swept is not off the table. I promise you that. All you got to do is just look at the last two Friday nights. I mean, and again, that's unfair to Anderson because I think he was really good against Bama until he wasn't. And then anything can happen game 3 on Sunday. So, I mean, Liam Doyle is going to be it's going to be tough to beat him. It is. And then you don't feel, extremely confident game 3. I'm not saying we can't get it done because when this team is on, they can beat anybody. And the key really, I think, for LSU is you have to win the 2 games that Evans and Cowan pitch. Period. That's it. It's a very small margin for error, but that's just what it is right now. LSU can play with anybody in like a 3-game series and win 2 of the games, but it's going to have to be on those terms. So if you had to you made me pick, I don't feel very confident about this weekend, but like, how can I? How can I? Would it shock me if LSU wins? Not at all. And I think we're going to see really early on Friday night how LSU responds to this adversity. It's very possible that they were overlooking Northwestern State. Very likely they were. I don't know that means that your pitchers can't throw strikes and nobody can hit the ball, but I don't think that's off the table. But anyway, that's going to do it for this preview episode. And hey, I hope we're back here after the series and we are all elated and looking forward to a magical home stretch. I really do. And it all starts with game 1 on Friday night. So as always, I will be back here to break down whatever we see in